Welcome back to the channel for another video today. Today we're going to be primarily reviewing that 2-2 draw at home to Sheffield Wednesday on the weekend. I've let the dust settle a bit. We're 48 hours on from the 2-2 draw, but again, it's a 2-2 draw in this league that is very, very disappointing due to the manner in which it happened, not just the result, but sort of the game plan from Wrexham on the whole in this game. It was a very, very tough watch, and we're also going to be bringing you, of course, some transfer news regarding some possible incomings and some outgoings in the next 7 days. So before we get going into today's video, if you're looking for the best Wrexham content, it's coming your way on this channel. We're on the road to 30,000 subscribers. If you could get down there and click the red subscribe button, it would massively mean a lot. Make sure to click the notification bell on as well so you're notified every time a new video does come to the channel. Let's go for 550 likes on today's video, and without further ado, let's get reviewing that disappointing draw. So I think Saturday was definitely a wake-up call for Wrexham in a lot of different departments and for a lot of different reasons, and a wake-up call that I think we needed now rather than later. As the season goes on, with 3 games in, the wake-up call is definitely needed, and one that can be rectified, of course, as the time goes on. And a lot of fans are probably watching this thinking, we're 3 games into the season and you're already, moaning at the players and getting flustered about the results. I think a lot of fans inside the stadium on Saturday will all be thinking the same. It was very disappointing in a lot of different ways. And, you're looking at this, we've got injuries. Yes, our player of the season from last season, Ollie Rathbone, is out. You've got a couple of new signings who we have brought in the summer transfer window, who of course have played a couple of games and have obviously gone out injured now, so we're missing them. And we're only 3 games into the season, but Saturday at home to Sheffield Wednesday was a very painful watch. And if we're looking at the first half, that just totally contradicts the point that I've just made about it being a painful watch. The first 45 minutes really made me believe that this is where the switch had been flipped by Wrexham. We were having plenty of play down the wing backs. You were looking at James McLean, had a bit of the ball down the left hand side, but mostly Ryan Longman. I thought he had a really good game down that right hand side. Really confident, taking on his man, putting plenty of crosses into the box, and it just seemed like going forward we were so confident and not really too hesitant to put that cross into the box, create that chance, and sort of just go all hell for leather at Sheffield Wednesday in that first half, which obviously worked with the 2 goals through Kiefer Moore. You look as well, not only in the attacking play, but we were controlling the play in the back 3 and in the midfield. It just looked like a very controlling performance, and going into the second half 2-0 up, it was just perfect. It was a perfect way to obviously bounce back from that disappointing home defeat against West Brom and that disappointing opening day defeat against Southampton. It sort of felt as if Wrexham was sort of getting their act together a bit and getting that first result on the board to obviously get that momentum going into the next couple of games. And you're looking at personal performances. I thought George Dobson had a really good game, especially in that first half, dictating the play. His tempo in that midfield was really, really good. He looked a lot more hesitant in terms of flying into tackles and getting stuck in. I thought his passing was good. He was good on the ball. And of course, like I've just highlighted, Ryan Longman, what a first half he had in that game. Plenty of times where he got the ball, took on his man, didn't really hesitate in terms of putting that step over in, beating his man. There was at least 4 or 5 times where he beat him, put that cross into the box, and we were unlucky not to score from a couple of different occasions. And it sort of felt as if Ryan Longman was sort of making that point to Phil Parkinson that he should be that starting right back for this season, because that first half we saw from him, and sometimes in the second half, he had a couple of chances down that right hand side. His crossing wasn't as good as it was in the first half, but overall I thought his performance was very, very good, and a performance that I think definitely doesn't warrant Ryan Barnett coming back into the starting 11 for the next league game. As well, you're looking at our 2 goals. Kiefer Moore took them really, really well. He stayed alert just outside the 6-yard box, something that I think we've needed in terms of that striking department, a striker that's just going to be on it, getting those, scrappy balls, those loose balls, and putting them into the back of the net. We needed a striker like that, a fox in the box, you could say, and Kiefer Moore has definitely showed that in that game against Sheffield Wednesday with his 2 goals to his name. And I think in terms of confidence for Kiefer Moore, of course, he probably could have had one previously, but those 2 goals will just do him the world of good, and I don't think it could have got any better than that in terms of a confidence booster, and he could have even had a hat-trick inside the first 45. There were so many positives to take from that first half across the whole of the pitch in different positions, personnel wise as well. A lot of good personal performances by the players. To then bottle a 2-0 lead in the fashion that we did and change the game plan completely really, really shocked me, especially against the calibre of opposition we were playing. And this is no disrespect to Sheffield Wednesday, but you look at the situation they're in, we shouldn't have tweaked the changes and tweaked the game plan in the matter that we did. And in the second half, I'm not really sure what was said by Parky and Steve Parkin, whether it was to take the foot off the gas a bit and not be as hell for leather, like I said in the first part of the video, and just fully go for it and try and score 3 or 4 goals and, you know, get it to 3 or 4-0 in the second half, and whether they said just to sit back and relax a bit, dictate the play more in our own half. Wouldn't be surprised if that was said, because we've seen that happen before, and I think it's important to note now that we're not in the National League anymore, and you could say we're not slightly in League 2. If we sit back in this league and play a negative brand of football, teams are going to punish us, and teams have punished us in the past. West Bromwich Albion, you know, Southampton, and now Sheffield Wednesday. There's no weak opposition in this league. If you're going to sit back and let the opposition dictate the play further up in their own half, and especially in our own half, which I think we saw a lot of the play happen. Of course, Barry Bannon in the middle of the park had a really good game. I don't understand what happened with him, because I think we marked him really well in the first half, but the second half, he just had the free roam with the pitch, clipping those balls into the channels, over the top in the defence, and of course scoring that goal on the edge of the box. There were so many times where Bannon was free, and I do think it is partly down to Matty James's positioning at times, and possibly the other two midfielders, but if Barry Bannon is playing that more advanced role, you're looking at Matty James sitting in front of the back three. He should have been the player that was looking out for Barry Bannon on the edge of the box, you know, constantly looking over his shoulders for him, but there were so many times where he was on the edge of the box, and of course he had a massive impact on the game in the second half. And if I'm being honest, we got punished, and I definitely do think for that second half alone we deserved to lose that game of football, because you can't go from having, you know, really good chances in the first half to having 4 shots in the second half, 0 on target. I don't know what the logic behind it was, whether we thought the game was over and whether Parky thought the game was over at 2-0 and he just wanted to sit back a bit and sort of just ease the game out. And I don't think that's me being too negative on that front. I do think it is just stating facts. You're looking at the stats in the second half, we conceded 16 shots in the second half. 16 shots in 45 minutes of football is very, very poor, considering how much we shut them out in the first half. If you were conceding that amount of shots against a team probably even higher in the table, possibly even just top half of the table, let's just say it would have ended very, very badly for us, and we'd have probably lost the game 4 or 5-2, because that second half was just not good enough. And I do think as well we have got to factor in, of course, the injuries, but I do think it wasn't to do with the players in that game. I do think it was the tactical decisions from Phil Parkinson. You know, we've got the squad to play. Yes, you can say that the squad is still gelling and the squad has still got time to obviously bond with each other, but these are championship proven players. They should know how to just see out a game of 45 minutes of football. It doesn't take obviously a mastermind to go into that second half and just, you know, just continue playing the way how we did in the first half. And I do think that is obviously what Phil Parkinson has said at half time, which has affected the performance in the second half. But if we're looking at midfield, which I think was the main area where we really struggled in, we were hit on the counter attack a lot and we just looked so open in the midfield. I think Phil Parkinson is actively looking for a replacement for Matty James and possibly George Dobson, and I would say as well another centre back. I do think obviously centre midfielders are bound to come in the next 7 days or so. We've seen Will Smallbone be linked, which we'll get talking on later on, and we've got Jordan James as well, who is all but nailed on to come to Wrexham. To be honest, I will never be more happy to see Jordan James come into this starting 11, because boy, at the minute, do we need it. You know, I can be negative and all this lot. We're 3 games into the season, there's still a long way to go. It's a marathon, not a sprint, and if there's anyone that deserves time in the dugout at Wrexham, it is Phil Parkinson, and that's an opinion that will never change for me. I do think we should give him this season. However, if this form does continue and if we continue to play this brand of football where if we're 1-2-0 up, we just suddenly sit back, and it always seems like this Wrexham team, well, it seems like this season especially, that one thing that happens in the game just completely changes the momentum, and obviously changes the momentum for the opposition that we are playing. And I am kind of concerned by how it is going, and I'm kind of concerned how we don't really have a plan B. You're looking at Sheffield Wednesday on the day, going into that half-time break. They were probably thinking we've just been murdered all over the pitch, but their manager, the players have got together, they've tweaked the game plan, and they've just completely sort of changed the play to something that I don't think we were expecting in that second half, and it didn't seem like we had an answer to that. We just reverted to keeping the same way of football, playing the same way, but Sheffield Wednesday were just shutting us out, getting the ball back and just continuing to go forward, which I think really hurt us on the day. And it was a shame, because it should have been a game that we should have eased out and won at least 3 or 4-0, given the first half that we did have. And I think it was disappointing that we had no reply for when Sheffield Wednesday were putting us under the cosh. However, of course, there is players still to come in. There's 2 really good midfielders I think that will be joining in. Obviously, definitely Jordan James I think is a nailed on. It's just a question whether it's Andy Irving or Will Smallbone. We're going to really recruit in that central midfield role, which I think is definitely needed. And there is obviously players to return from injury, so let's hope things can get better over the next couple of games. We've of course got Preston North End tomorrow in the Cup. It's going to be a good opportunity for a few of the sporadic players, the squad rotation players, to come in. And I think there's definitely no positions in this team at the minute that are guaranteed, so it'll be their opportunity to show to Phil Parkinson why they should be in that league squad, and especially in that starting 11 for the game on Saturday against Millwall. So let me know in the comment section down below your thoughts on the 2-2 draw against Sheffield Wednesday. Of course, it's a point on the board, but it's just the matter in how it happened in that second half that I'm really disappointed by. But let's cheer things up a bit and let's get talking transfer news, as we do in probably every single video over the past 2 or 3 months. So Phil Parkinson did conduct an interview after the game against Sheffield Wednesday, and he did say there is still a lot to happen this week behind the scenes for Wrexham with outgoings and incomings. Phil Parkinson said 1 or 2 may be going and 1 or 2 may be coming in, and I do think it's a guarantee that 3 or 4 are going to leave. I think saying 1 or 2 is definitely an understatement. I do think 3 or 4 are 100% going to leave Wrexham this week. Of course, we've just talked on the midfielders that we have been linked with. We've got bids in apparently for Jordan James of Stade Rennes, Will Smallbone for fellow Championship side Southampton, and Andy Irving of West Ham United. And if 2 of those out of the 3 are set to come in, I think it will kind of sort all the people's worries out in terms of that midfield role. I think they're all 3 good players that will come into the side, will add experience, quality on the ball, and will just be improvements onto what we already do have in that midfield role. A £7.5 million bid has reportedly been placed for Southampton midfielder Will Smallbone, which is a lot of money. He's out of favour at Southampton. Could that price possibly be lower? Is that price factually correct? We really don't know at this moment in time, but I think there is genuine interest in Will Smallbone, and if there's ever going to be a signing that's going to happen, I think this is kind of nailed on, given his situation at Southampton and of course Wrexham's need for another midfielder that has got Championship experience and can just sort of dictate the play better and keep the structure better than what we already have this season. If you're looking at outgoings as well, I think it's pretty guaranteed that we're going to see George Evans leave, Ollie Palmer, Jacob Mendy, Jack Marriott, and possibly, you know, the likes of Elliot Lee or Tom O'Connor. There's still a chance that I do think, you know, some of those players will go, and I think it is going to be a massive outhaul for Wrexham in the next couple of days. Some players, of course, might play against Preston North End tomorrow, but if they are, I think deals will be concluded soon after, maybe 24, 48 hours after. So I think it'll just be Phil Parkinson wanting them to get game time, of course, before they possibly leave the club. So it's going to be a very, very busy next 7 days for Wrexham in terms of incomings and outgoings, and it's a really important 7 days for Phil Parkinson. He has a lot of key decisions to make in terms of where he needs to recruit and where he needs to improve on in this starting 11, and of course the players going out, he needs to find the right clubs for them, the right challenge for them, especially if they're going out on loan, to get the best game time possible to possibly come back to Wrexham and fight for their spot. So it's going to be interesting to see what does happen. So let me know in the comment section down below, who would you like to see join in? Would you like to see Jordan James, Will Smallbone, Andy Irving? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. And would you like to see another centre back come in possibly? There were links to Jack Robinson from Sheffield United, Chris Mepham from, I think, Bournemouth he's currently contracted at. I wouldn't be against obviously bringing in another centre back, but it's Phil Parkinson. Let's let him do the business he thinks we need to do. And yeah, make sure to subscribe, like, do all that good stuff, and I'll see you in another video. Take care guys, up the town.